Well, hi everybody, it's meteorologist Joe Chaffee. It is a Monday, the 14th of January, 2019, and I hope you had a great weekend. Didn't live stream yesterday. I just kind of needed to take a break when the opportunity presented itself, and it did yesterday because I figured it's going to get busy this week, and I needed my energy. So, it was a wise decision on my part with everything that's going on today and with what's on the weather models. We have a lot going on tonight. We've got a storm system coming into California and into the southwest that is going to be moving eastward. This is going to be one of two weather systems that will eventually impact the East Coast. The first one for Thursday and into Friday as it moves across the Ohio Valley and then into the Northeast. That is going to be the minor system, and then we're going to have the second one that's going to come in and later this week into the west, and that is going to be the potential powerhouse that will be affecting the East Coast. It's not going to be the type of storm in the sense that when you look at the satellite and you see this sort of wrapped up comma shape system. This is going to be a bit different. Very deep trough, a relatively deep trough, is going to come into the west. It is going to affect the east. We are going to have some very, very cold air. It's going to be like a wall. And once the frontal boundary passes, temperatures right behind it are going to drop very quickly. I see this as at least for my area, I see this as, which is eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. The further north and west that you go, you'll probably have more frozen than anything else. But for the areas close to the coast, it may start out as a brief burst of snow, and then some rain for a while. But then Sunday morning, once the frontal boundary, once the first low, the first wave goes by, we're going to see a change over to ice and then a change over to snow. And I still think the whole situation is evolving. This is not about models being further north or further south or further west. It really isn't. It's all about the upper trough and how the upper trough is structured when it approaches the East Coast. This is really about the split flow in the jet stream, the northern jet stream and the southern jet stream. This is a situation where if there's a phase, you're going to wind up with a warmer solution. And models are having a very difficult time figuring out how this is all going to play. If the northern part of the jet stream outruns the south, then you're going to wind up with a colder solution, but then you have to start to think about, well, is everything's going to start sinking further south and east? It's a very delicate play here that we have going ahead. This is Monday. I would not expect any clarity on this, at least from the standpoint of the models coming around to what the reality is, until maybe about Thursday. So look for some more swings back and forth. But I've warned people for days, and I'll warn you guys and gals again: don't look at snapshots from run to run and make absolute statements about it. Of course, we've gone from making absolute statements about models throwing up eye candy with big snow, big, huge snow numbers, to on the very next run, it's it's all rain, and the snow is up in western New York and up near the Great Lakes. But no, here comes the next run, and it's back in the other direction. There is a huge area of ice. There isn't a huge area of ice. Those are all going to be short-range and short-term issues to play with, and when we get there, we will figure those things out. In the meantime, let's figure out how this all plays. And also, we have a system ahead of this for Thursday, and you look at first things first. Okay, so we're going to look at all of this. Joe Rayo may or may not be joining me. He had a something he had to take care of. If it gets taken care of, he will be jumping in. And in the meantime, we will also be talking about the long-range pattern. All I can say about the overall long-range pattern is I really would love to get every person that commented to me, and actually as far as YouTube is concerned, it's been very little, but this is mostly on Facebook. Would love to get every person who commented to me that winter is over before it even started after maybe later next week. I think their punishment should be to just kind of stand outside naked for a few hours, because it's just going to be there are indications that we're going to get at least one solid drop of brutally cold air. So let's take a look at the west first, because this is where everything is coming from, and of course we've got flood watches up in the green across parts of interior, central, and into northern California. We've got various winter weather advisories in eastern California down the mountains, and then we have winter storm watches up in northern parts of northern California, flood watches down in southern California, down near San Diego, and we also have winter storm warnings up for some of the mountains in and around LA. You can see the salmon color there. Those are winter storm warnings that are up for that particular region. So this is a fairly strong system coming in. We have some winter weather advisories in and around the Great Lakes with a weak system. And in the rest of the country, it is pretty quiet at the moment. So I'm going to jump first to the radar and show you what's happening. And the reason, this is the system that's going to be moving along for Thursday. So this is why I wanted to kind of jump on this first. But you can see the radar is picking up on waves of rain coming in off the Pacific Ocean and covering a good chunk of Southern California, some heavier rains. And of course, in the higher elevations, you're talking snow. And this goes all the way up northwestward, northwest of San Francisco, and continuing to move northward. Pretty good signature on the satellite in terms of what it looks like. It's that upper air system that's coming in. That's going to be the player for the east in just a little bit. And as far as the surface map is concerned, we'll take it down there, and there's a system way offshore, less than 1,004 low, off the coast of California, that'll be moving inland in this big trailing front that's swinging up from the southeast and going to be lifting northward up through California with that heavier rain. Meanwhile, out in the east, we have yesterday's storm, the one from Saturday into Sunday anyway, is now way out offshore and pretty much moving on an east-northeast course. Behaved pretty much according to plan, thankfully. A little bit of some nerve-wracking moments, but it played out pretty well. And then you've got this snaking cold front that runs through the Great Lakes and down up into Minnesota, northwestern Iowa, and back through the Dakotas. Weak high pressure building in here. We are going to see relatively calm weather in the area that wound up getting the snow over the weekend, and it was extensive. Washington, D.C., picking up the area in and around Washington, D.C., anywhere from 8 to 12 inches. This is the weather.gov/CRH/snowfall tool, which I have put up on the chat board, the link for it. And it's a really good tool to have. It updates these maps. I think it only updates it once a day, right after 7 a.m., but this at least covers, you can go out to 72 hours, and when you scroll your mouse over any given geographic area, it'll tell you what the analysis is in terms of snowfall, what it was in terms of snow amounts. And again, Washington, 8, and in some areas, a foot of snow in and around Germantown. And we had 6 to 8 inches up through Baltimore. We had actually some 4 and even a few 5-inch amounts recorded in parts of southern New Jersey. The cutoff line was Route 195. It worked out perfect in terms of the northern cutoff of the 1-inch snow line. And that ran north and west into Pennsylvania, just north of State College, south central PA, anywhere from under 2 inches as you go north of Harrisburg and Route 76 to 2 to as much as 4 inches as you get down toward the Pennsylvania border. And then out to the west, we had some solid snow amounts southeast of Indianapolis towards Cincinnati with 6 to 8 inches there. And of course the 12 to 18 inches that fell over parts of east central Missouri into west central Illinois. So this was quite the snow producer across the Central Plains through the Ohio Valley. A lot of areas that got snow here have been waiting for their first snows, and they've now gotten it. And it looks like, except for if you take out the November snow, there's a narrow strip from Boston down to, not that far into southeastern New England that has not gotten their first inch of snow yet. And for New York City, it's been well over 60 days since the November 6-inch snowfall, and there hasn't been, an accumulating snow since. So it looks like that streak may finally be broken. I'm kind of hoping that it gets broken with the Thursday storm. By the way, we also have some ample snows that fell through parts of Colorado down into New Mexico and back over in through Arizona. And I'm thinking that we'll probably see, and we actually do have a little bit of spotty areas here, I guess, where they have the winter storm. This is where they have the winter storm warnings up out in and around the mountains to the north of Los Angeles and to the northwest of Los Angeles, and they're likely to see some more snow with those winter storm warnings. So I think tomorrow when we look at this, we'll probably see some pretty hefty snow amounts in that particular area. So let's now go to the weather models with respect to what we're dealing with going forward. As I said earlier, you're going to be doing a lot of emotional gnashing of teeth if you keep kind of making the assumption that the model run you're looking at the present time, including this one, is the final. It is the way that it's going to happen, and in fact, we are again going to be looking for more changes with what we're dealing with. So yesterday's system moves out. Remember that going into that, we were talking about the fact that we had this split flow in the upper atmosphere with the tail of two jets, and we still have it. And going forward, we're going to start with Thursday. And you know what? I'm going to switch here. I'm going to go to this U.S. wider view because then we could really see it a bit better in terms of the coast-to-coast perspective. So you've got this system coming into the west and a shortwave trough that's going to get ejected eastward. It is a little hard to find. The main energy stays off the coast of the Pacific, but some of that does come eastward into the Central Plains and moves across the Ohio Valley. By Thursday night, its axis from Chicago down to about, say, North Georgia. It's hard to find a dent in the flow, but there is one there. And I think the weakness of this system actually plays to the favor of snow lovers, because that would likely create a scenario where we could have a colder atmosphere as this moves into the eastern PA to southern New England zone, and maybe even points further south than that. That goes by and out. And watch up in the northwest at this time. And we're into late Thursday night here. I'm sorry, 7 p.m. Thursday. You've got the northern part of the jet stream with a strong jet that runs from Lake Winnipeg on the center upper left, and that runs into southeastern Canada. Now you've got this system coming into the northwest, and that dives down. Now, there's going to be a tendency for a ridge to try to pop up in the east. The thing about the ridge in the east is it's a double-edged sword. If you have too much ridging, you're gonna have it's going to be warm and rain. If you don't have enough ridging, then you're going to wind up seeing everything suppressed to the south, like we saw this weekend. And there were other things at play too. You had an overpowering northern jet that just kind of squashed everything. So you got to find that sort of, for snow lovers, you have to have that, always have that very delicate balance. You want just enough of a ridge, but not too much. Now, here's the problem with this system going forward, and that is it is trying to phase, and the actual trough itself, if you notice, it actually has quite a long wavelength. It goes from western Labrador across James Bay and then all the way south down into Texas. So you've got a pretty large area in the east that's underneath this upper flow that's to the southwest. Now, at this point, what you want to see if you're a snow lover, and what you don't want to see if you're a snow hater, is that you want that northern part of the trough, which is separate here at this point and tries to phase. You want that northern part of the trough to basically run out ahead and leave the south behind. One of the issues with the earlier run today, with the 12Z run, is that in the sequence of this, as we've watched this evolve over the last few days, we've gone from this sort of unfazed look where the north stays separate from the south and outruns it. And I thought that at some point we would see a couple of runs where the model will try and phase it together, and that's what it did here. It phased it, and as a result, you wind up where a primary low goes further west. You have warmer air. It's not a whole lot of it's enough of a difference anyway. It's not a tremendous difference, but it's enough of a difference to create forecasting issues in both directions. The southern part of this jet stream stays separate. It means for a colder solution, and you do eventually get the north to start to outrun the south. But at this point, as we're going into Monday morning, this would be too late. Now, I want to just show you the Canadian model, because the Canadian model had probably the extreme solution on the warm extreme, in that it phased this system early, so that actually when it reaches the point of the East Coast, the trough axis is almost neutral as it goes by. This is why, if those of you who might have looked at the Canadian run, this is why it pops up a stronger ridge in the east, and you wind up, because of all that energy in the north getting involved, you've got your low center that's basically up in the northern Great Lakes. That's a reflection of that the strength of that northern shortwave coming down. I think that is unrealistic given what we've been dealing with, and the Canadian is not the most reliable player in the world, although it actually did probably the best job of all the models in handling the system from this past weekend. But I still think that the Canadian, for the most part, is the old broken clock is right twice a day model, because it spends a lot of the time doing these like really weird things, and then every once in a while it just kind of sees reality and gets it right. So the late afternoon GFS run has gone back to, it was actually rather interesting, because it was slower by a good 6 to 9 hours, and the trough is further west here at the point of Saturday evening, and then the southern part of the trough gets stronger as we move into Sunday, while the northern part pulls away and lifts up. So this winds up being a colder model solution overall. And this is really where it boils down to, folks, and how we're going to play this over the next couple of days. It's going to be the structure of the trough, and whether you're going to wind up with a phase or with the north outrunning the south and bringing more cold air in. The European today actually trended from the night run. It had a bit of a different 500, but even from yesterday, it has, if you look closely here at this upper air, the southern shortwave is separate. You see there's a space in central Kentucky. That's the northern edge of the southern shortwave that runs down into the Gulf of Mexico, and then the northern shortwave is accessed from say James Bay down to Sault Ste. Marie into northwestern Illinois. And if you watch what the European does, it actually lifts the northern part of the shortwave. The northern part of the trough just lifts out, and you're left with the southern part kind of diving down there into Virginia, North Carolina. So it took everything and kind of moved it further east, made it for a colder colder setup, even though it would be probably a snow to rain to ice to snow situation before ending. It did come back from what it did on the overnight run. And the late afternoon GFS, by the way, kind of confirms this notion. So again, You can sit here and watch run to run. We all are going to do that. But in terms of what this is finally going to look like, with the second system, we're going to just have to sit back and wait. It's just not going to be something that we're going to have an answer to at this time. Tomorrow when we do our live stream, maybe we'll get a slight amount of clarity on Wednesday, but I think Thursday might be a good day to kind of start, zeroing in on how the whole how this is all going to play. So you've got this system getting kicked out east. Notice out in California, another big wave of big rain and snows on Wednesday into Thursday that run up into the northwest. Meanwhile, low pressure comes out. We have a cold front that's coming here on Wednesday in the east. That's going to bring in a little shot of cold air, not a whole lot, but enough maybe to at least get some frozen at the start. And then you've got this weak low that comes out with, it's really just an area of warm advection that's moving eastward. Warm air moving into this cold high, and you get an area of snow that breaks out ahead of it. The NAM, by the way, is colder, just so you know. I'll show that to you. It doesn't go out past 1 a.m. on Friday, but it does have more snow. And even today's late afternoon GFS, which had rain in New Jersey and on the coast, now actually has some snow at the start. And then that low just moves out. It's just weak. But I think somebody could wind up with a few inches out of this before it's all said and done. And now here comes the low for the weekend. You've got a cold high that's coming down out of Canada, and part of that high is necked across into southeastern Canada. You see it here on the by Saturday morning. So there'll be a fair amount of low-level cold air that'll drain southward. And then the surface low is pushing east. This is like you almost got this long piece of taffy that you're stretching on one end, and the lower pressures up in northeastern Kentucky on this run start to push east. You get into some snow or rain at the start, and then the first wave is just going to go by. The frontal boundary is going to start to pivot along the coast in the same way that you saw the upper trough. And because the upper trough is so far to the west, you're going to wind up with an expanding area of probably sleet and freezing rain. Let me just tell you, in situations like this, you almost always see the changeover from rain to freezing rain and sleet happen a lot faster than what the model indicates. So just bear that in mind. And I'm going to pull up a couple of soundings. And by the way, I know some of you have asked me if I would do something one day with just talking about it, how to read the soundings. I will do a separate video as soon as I get a little time one day to sit back, and I'll cut a separate instructional video on how to read the soundings here on Tropical Tidbits. But let's take a look at, I'm going to take a point roughly at about where New York City is. And this is for 7 o'clock Sunday evening on the GFS, where you've got a temperature of 28, okay? And you'll notice, by the way, if you follow this, this is the height you're at the 1,000 millibar level, 900, 800, 765, and so on. And you'll notice that the temperature on the sounding is 28, okay? And you have it actually very cold in the bottom part of the atmosphere between 900 and 1,000 millibars. And then there's a warm nose that as you go higher up toward 850, you go above zero. So this is probably why we're seeing the model showing sleet here at this point. I'm thinking that's going to be sleet. And then after that, as you go higher up, you start to see the temperature. Once you get past that 850 level, it starts to go back below. But the ground temperature here is at 28. And on the side here, you can look at the wind barbs. You got northerly winds until you get to about the 850 millibar level, and then you have southwest winds. Okay, so your cold air is coming in at the very bottom of the atmosphere, and you've got still southwest winds all the way up, reflecting the depth of that upper trough that's going by. Now, at the same time, if we go up to Albany, or I'll go up near Albany and pull up the sounding there, the temperature there is 12. Okay, so this is really very cold air that is coming down. You'll notice that up in Albany, there's a warm nose, but the freezing line, here's the zero, the dashed line that goes up on a diagonal here. So the temperatures at all levels at Albany is below freezing. You are seeing that as all snow, which is what the model indicates. And if we go out to the west, I'll just take a point here in central PA. We've got a ground temperature of, I believe that's 13 that I'm seeing. Okay, so this is not do-it-yourself cold air, as I call it. Sometimes it's sort of cyclonic cold air. This is very cold air that's coming down, and the isobars are northeast, so the surface winds are going to be north. That air is going to be coming straight down from eastern Canada. That's why I think you're going to probably see a change over to sleet happening a lot faster than what is being modeled. And then then it starts to slowly move away. The GFS may not be correct in the timing here because of the fact that it actually lingers snow through Monday morning. I would think that by then that much of this would be over with, but I think the reason it does that is because it lags the trough behind. It's slower and it's not as deep as the prior run. Now, if you want to take a look at the parallel GFS, which was a real winner here today, late this afternoon, because it's actually not that different from the 18Z regular operational GFS. Same idea. The only thing is that it brings the changeover to sleet and freezing rain a whole lot faster, and actually has a dark blue band of what I would figure is heavy snow. I wish I could actually see. There are no soundings available on this. I might just try. Let's try the. Sometimes he's got them for the close-up maps. Yeah, not happening. But here's how it looks on the close-up. And this is at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The operational GFS is 6 hours later that you get to this point. And then you change over to snow, and then it's over with by about around midnight or so. So it just happens a whole lot faster. It accomplishes the same thing, but it does it 6 hours sooner. For laughs, I'll show you the snow map. And I'll show you the snow map on the parallel GFS. We'll go back a few runs because the numbers don't really mean too much. Just look at the general area of where you think the heavier snow might be. This is, I went back 4 runs ago, and now we'll go, this is from 0Z last night. Here's the 6Z, which was, and then suddenly on the 12Z, you have that big snow area shifts well north and west because of the phased look. And now that we've gone back to a little bit more of an unphased look, it's shifted back to the south and east. So you see, this is why I tend to think that given the way things have worked this winter, the fact that everything is wanted to be a bit more suppressed. We haven't really had very much in the way of phasing systems here in the upper air. We've had more of these ideas, these situations where the one jet is fighting the other, where the north has actually been suppressing the south. So I'm a firm believer in the trend is your friend. I would kind of lean in that direction at this point with regards to how this is all going to play. All right, long range. And I said at the beginning that if in the next week or so, I think all those people that on my Facebook page were writing that winter is over really going to have to do some serious penance, and I'm going to come up with some, particularly evil way to get that penance done. But watching the upper pattern, everything's playing according to plan with regards to the impact of the split of the vortex in the stratosphere. Just watch what happens up through Canada. You've got this persistent vortex with short waves moving along. Here's our system for the weekend, that positive tilt that goes by, and then here comes the next one right behind it. And by the way, the long range does have something for later next week that would impact areas in some of the models anyway, impact the deep south, and has another big system coming up the east coast. I don't know if that's real or not, but it's just that it's a very, very dynamic pattern. And at the end, you wind up with the vortex almost dropping straight southward out of Canada over into the Great Lakes and Northeast. So I contend that at the very least, there's going to be one good, solid shot of brutal air that's going to come down. By the way, you get a lot of, It does help sometimes to run it backwards. You could see how everything just sort of evolves. If you just focus on what's happening in Canada, the actual strengthening polar flow over time, starting from the beginning and then getting just stronger and stronger with more and more impact. And you can also watch the Pacific. You can watch these systems, watch the systems in the Pacific as they just roll in one after another, with energy coming in and then getting sent down into the plains, and then eventually to the East Coast. It's one after another until you get this big upper high that starts to build up in the Gulf of Alaska. Split flow though, because you have a jet from Hawaii into Baja and into Southern California there. So that's going to still be streaming weather systems along. This is your negative EPO, by the way. This is your negative East-Pacific oscillation that is going to be there even if we have the government shut down and we can't get the actual graphical representation. In terms of what you're seeing here, this is a very, very, I would say, off-the-wall negative East-Pacific oscillation, which is very cold for the eastern part of the United States, and it's reflected by that vortex just dropping down and dropping in. It is very, very impressive in my never to be humble opinion. Okay, back to, and by the way, that was the parallel GFS that brought us that. We can take a look at the GFS and its upper air. Same notion. So here's your system for this. Well, you can barely see the first one, but trust me, it's there. And then here comes the second one. This is for the weekend. And then that's gone. And then January 23rd. And notice, look at that. Watch that. Look at that vortex. It's like the bottom falls out. It's just the whole trough just comes down. This is for the weekend of my birthday, January 26th and 22nd, advertising some brutal cold. And again, that big high, that big upper high up in off the Pacific Northwest coast. Again, here's your negative EPO. And look at this trough. I mean, this is insane. You've got this polar flow running from Siberia across the Arctic regions, right down through Canada and into the eastern part of the United States. And this is going to get all the way south down into Florida if the trough is as deep as being advertised. All right? Now, Europe, here we come. Because we're waiting for the big changes that are going to be happening in Europe with respect to its situation, and the fact that while the central and southern Europe down into the Mediterranean have been very cold and very wintry, the western part of Europe, and particularly England, Ireland, and Scotland, have been under this upper high. Been forecasting that upper high to break down. That is going to be happening over the next few days, and then you're going to start to see weather systems moving along. And we're particularly been talking about the period after January 20th, where you do wind up with something significant, and this is it. I've had a number of model runs showing it. This very, very deep upper low that drops down over England and Ireland and on up into Western Europe. So this is going to be very much a big cold and snow producer when it's all said and done. Take a look at the we'll take a look at the surface map. I'll just roll it back a bit. So going through the weekend of the 20th, and then here we go on the 21st, 22nd. You start to get that colder air, and then a low, a very deep low. That's a 950 millibar low in the North Sea. And now you've got these northwest winds and northerly winds bringing down cold, very cold air, and you're getting snow in England, and all of Ireland is basically all snow here. And I think this is going to happen. And you're also going to see snows down in France, Germany, down up into northern Spain, especially in the mountains, and maybe even some more snow for Italy. Look at this, going into the longer range period. At least through 10 days takes us now to January 24th. So if I pull the snow map up, it kind of backed off a little. Oh, I pulled the wrong one. This is, I think, the 24-hour one. Hang on. Sorry about that. The total snowfall is what we want. And indeed, over the next 10 days, quite a bit of snow. Not quite into western France, but getting closer. But England, yes, especially northern England and through much of Scotland, northern Ireland, showing some big snow amounts. You can see the scale on the side there in centimeters. And for those of you who want to look at this a bit more in depth, you can just go to tropicaltidbits.com. I would just say that this is, the models have just been very, very consistent in showing this pattern emerging for Western Europe as we go through the next 10 days or so. And there's nothing that I saw today that makes me want to change my mind on that. So I'm going to come back to you guys on the chat board. I guess Joe must have gotten hung up in what he had to do. We're going to have our Joe and Joe Facebook show tonight at 9:20. So you can go to my Facebook page, meteorologistjoechaffee.com. I'm sorry, Meteorologist Joe Chaffee is my Facebook page. My website is meteorologistjoechaffee.com. Okay. So thanks for everybody for being here. You can see on the chat board, everybody's been pretty busy. Got a nice little crowd tonight. Okay, you guys are talking about what I'm talking about. Mark Gladfelter, thanks for hitting Super Chat. Really appreciate it. Nick Ortiz, thanks very much for hitting Super Chat. Mark, you don't have to do it, by the way. You're part of the Patreon group, but thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. Alicina Alawazi, Al-Wazali, I'm sorry. I think the models are going to ultimately trend colder given what happened this winter, and also, as I said, the northern jet stream being the more dominant feature. If the north can outrun the south, this could wind up being, a pretty interesting ice and snow event for the coastal areas of the Northeast. I actually think that we're going to get something out of this along the lines. It's a matter of, does it happen at the very end for a few hours, or does it happen for a long duration of time? And I think that's the big question that we're going to want to try to determine. Jess Harden, in the long term, if we get these polar plunges of cold air coming southward, you may have your opportunity, okay? So don't knock it. It may still happen. And Alicina, thank you for hitting Super Chat tonight as well. Really appreciate it. Happy birthday to Danielle Billen. Happy birthday to you. Let's see. Marquise Vincent, nice to see you on board. Anthony Orr, of course, as always. Good to see you. Dio Nankumar. That's a lot of. That's right in time for my birthday, Dio. The cold air coming in on the 27th. I'll be singing happy birthday to burning firewood. A lot of burning firewood. Mark, Garo Vestas, northern New Jersey and the Catskills. You'll be there in your Delta 88. Oh, nice. This weekend, yeah, you'll need the weight of a car that big to get you home if that's the case. I got to think for inland areas, based on what I'm looking at early on, this is really for the inland areas, this is going to be an ice to snow event, and it's going to be I think it's going to be one of size. I can't imagine seeing a situation where out of this, from what we're being shown, that we wind up going to something that has the north basically squashing the south and forcing everything to the south and east. I think that's probably a reach for it to happen this time around. Both jet streams, the northern and the southern stream, are pretty strong. The systems that they're bringing in are very strong. Steve LaPointe and Sierra Sites, thank you so much. Thank you very, very much for doing that. I really appreciate it, Sierra. And good luck to you on your job. And Steve LaPointe, also, thank you very much for hitting Super Chat. If Sunday storm, Matthew Warman, were all snow for the coastal areas of the Northeast, how much would Connecticut get? That's always a very tough question to answer, because it's an apples and oranges type of question, because each weather system, depending on where you are in the part of the weather system, if you're on the warm side of it, you're going to generate more liquid precip than you would be if you were on the cold side of it. So it's kind of hard to translate one to the other. If you follow what I'm saying, it's more than a matter of picking up and saying that, okay, we're going to get 3 inches of liquid. Yeah, therefore, if it was all snow, you'd wind up with 30 inches or more. But you can't really say that because it's highly likely that on the cold side, where they are getting all snow, no one's getting 30 inches. No one's getting 3 feet of equivalent liquid. So, you know, I've seen systems like this in one form or another where you wind up getting rain to ice and then a 4 to 8 or 5 to 10 inch snowfall on top of it. But location is everything. I've also seen it where, you know, if you're not in the, you know, kind of in where the core of the cold air really gets in, and if you're in a position where you're on the coast sometimes and you're sitting there and you're waiting for it, and then it comes in the last couple of hours and you wind up with a coating to a slushy inch or two, and that's it. So it's going to be about location. And frankly, we got to wait here. It's Monday, and as I said earlier, I think we really need to wait until maybe about Thursday to get some real clarity in terms of how this is going to specifically play out. I think that today's phased look on the 12Z run may not show. I'm thinking that was it on that run, and that we're going to start to trend to a solution where the northern part of that trough outruns the south to some degree. I don't think this is going to be a phase because up until now, as I said, we haven't seen any phases. Now, that operates on the trend is your friend idea. The trend is your friend until it changes, and then it's not your friend anymore, and then you have to figure out what the new trend, what the new trend is. But again, right now, it's Monday, so we'll wait. All right? I think that pretty much sums it up as far as what's going on. Actually kept it under a reasonable time, under 45 minutes. So thanks very much for being here. Let me just tell you a couple of things. On my YouTube library, Joe Rayo was at Pace University giving a talk last Friday. And Joe is very much involved in the astronomy world. And he gave an hour lecture. I uploaded the lecture onto my YouTube channel, and you can watch it at your leisure. He talks about the graying of astronomy, that it's hard to get younger people interested in it because they're too busy playing video games, and they're looking at simulated astronomy instead of the real thing. Also, he talks about the upcoming lunar eclipse that we're going to have, that's going to be visible here in a matter of days, and that's this weekend. I believe it's Saturday night. It starts around 10:30. No, I'm sorry, Sunday night. It starts around 10:30. The reason why I remember now it was Sunday was because somebody asked me that their son was saying that you need to drive me to where the skies are clear so I could see the eclipse, and she asked me where should she go, and she's from the New York metro area, and I said, well, you probably have to go out all the way to Pittsburgh in order to do this, but it is Sunday evening, and he's going to talk. He talks about that on there. Greenfire 919, you were at and you testified to the fact that his speech was excellent. He also did show it on his Facebook page, Joe Rayo Weather, but I got the whole thing downloaded and on my video library, and it's in the library. I also put it in the instructional. I'm going to put it in the instructional video section. So give it a look after you're done here, and that. Was anything else that I wanted to let you guys know about? No. Okay, so if you want additional weather coverage, picked up a whole bunch of new members on my Patreon platform, and it's my subscription weather platform doing a lot of extra weather posts and live streams for Patreon members only. It's just $2 a month to subscribe, and you get extra posts, extra live streams. You can message me at any time for a timely response, and much more. And you may also get a little bit of meteorology class that I've been doing. So the link is up there on the chat board. And thanks to those of you, know a number of the Patreon folks are on here tonight, like Doug Crum, Scott Briller, Lord Kate. Thank you for joining. Lord Kate has now joined the Patreon platform, and Scott Briller's on there, and so many others. And I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. I think we're moving along well in there, and we're going to try to do some other things going along the way. Also, I have my free weather app on Google Play. Let me just give you the link for that. It's for Android devices. Still don't have the iPhone version yet, but here's the one for Android, and you can download that on the Google Play Store. So thanks very much again for everybody for being here tonight. Regular schedule tomorrow, live stream tomorrow night on YouTube here at 7 o'clock, open to all, and Facebook tonight at 9:20 with Joe Rayo. I'm sorry you couldn't make it today. Have a great evening, folks. We'll see you tomorrow.